being in an institution like corrections, what's that world like? You're familiar with this. The Jews that became like a Jew to win the Jews. Those under the law became like one under the law, etc. It became all things to all people. So that all possible means it might gain some. So Paul understood the importance of understanding the uniqueness of whatever group he was talking to. Our commonalities, of course, are much bigger than what makes us different and unique. At the same time, those uniquenesses count, and you have to understand as much as you can the people that you're talking to. Paul understood that. Okay, and we're talking to a unique people group, people who are incarcerated. That's a different world. They have a different way of looking at life than we do, than we could possibly do when you're living incarcerated behind razor wire 24/7. Okay, so that is our challenge. How does the gospel of Jesus speak to this world? Again, they have so much more in common with us than what we have different. But yet those differences are important. Let's take a look at a few of these. What are the inmates like? And I know I'm talking to some people who have already got some great insights in that as you've gotten to know them. But just a few things here. Commonality, first of all. They're like us. They have hopes, fears, regrets, resentments. And they love their families and their friends. And sometimes they do a lousy job of loving them, just like we do. And that's what they're feeling awful about. But basically, they're like us. They're not a species apart. Most people who come to religious activities, keep this in mind, they come because they're looking for God, for the most part. The overwhelming majority, in my experience, has been they come because they're looking for God, they want to change. Keep this in mind, and they have trouble believing God wants anything to do with them. If anything, they're having trouble grasping the message of grace. It's just not registering. But they are looking for help. They are looking for God, for the most part. You will get knuckleheads, you get clowns coming. Not as often as you'd think. At least that's been my experience. Very once in a while. It was always a thrill to me at Milwaukee County House of Correction, the addiction recovery Bible study that I would do there. When time would come for the group to assemble, a bunch of guys would be coming in, and it was always interesting. One or two guys that were there just, I'm bored. Nothing else to do. Maybe I can get a chance to meet some of my guys and we can talk or whatever. And they'd find themselves surrounded by these guys who were dead serious about recovery. I'm wondering, what am I doing here? It was always so interesting to see that. These guys mean it. These guys, what? I have met spiritual giants in prison. There's so often where I come in and think, man, I feel foolish being the teacher here. I need to be taught by you guys. You guys have been spending your time in prayer, in Bible study, talking among yourselves, correcting and leading each other. Man, I need what you got. So watch for that. Don't Jesus is already in the prison. Don't forget that ever. But at the same time, pretty much everybody we're going to meet, well, why are they in there? They're criminals. And there's probably criminal thinking. Almost undoubtedly, there's criminal thinking. If I had the time today, here's where I would, and hopefully we can get this online very quickly and get this going. I want to explore this criminal thinking a bit. So just so we're aware of it. Criminal thinking, it's no different from what any of us do. It's just that they're not very good at it and they got caught. And seriously, there's a lot to that. What's the difference between a guy in prison green and us? Well, we were much smarter about picking our sins. They weren't so smart. They picked the sins that get them in trouble with the law. We didn't, but either way. But anyway, watch for that. Love them, accept them, be with them, and don't let your guard down. And I'm serious. And when they're serious, they'll tell you the same thing. You know, I'm not a completely trustworthy person yet. And they're living with people. Even if they're a trustworthy guy, they're living 24/7 with people who aren't trustworthy. So, watch the information that you give away, personal information especially. Lord's Prayer, lead us not into temptation. Well, don't lead a person into temptation if they're already prone to this kind of thing. It's a world of limitations. Just the razor wire itself tells you that. You can go this far and no farther. It's also limitations about choices. I got this from a prison fellowship several years ago. Their study showed that all of us on the outs make about 120 decisions in the course of an average day. Choices, what will I have for breakfast? Do I apply for the new job? Whatever, whole range of choices. Somebody inside prison makes about 20. Look at that huge difference. And that's one of the reasons that transition back into the community is so difficult. I've been used to choices being made for me all this time, and now I've got to make these choices. One of the reasons that so many people fail. Movement is obviously limited. You operate within the yard, within the confines, and that's it. There's razor wire up there. Friends that you'd call them up, go and hang out with them. Your family that you go to their parties and their weddings, not happening no more, obviously. And we're made for fellowship. Human beings are made for companionship and for relationships. What kind of human contacts do they have? We're used to think authorities are our friends. Authorities are God-given. They're there for our good. They're living in a world where the authorities see you as the adversary. It's an adversarial relationship between them and authorities. The best of the guards are able to see, yes, it is us versus them, but I'm also there to help them. The best of them. Others can't see that far, and it's just a totally adversarial relationship. But everything is set to keep you in place, to confine you. All the rules, all the enforcement of the rules. So it's not a very uncomfortable way to live, with that hanging over your head all the time. The people you associate with, your peers, they're criminals. Well, so are you, but that's the point. I wouldn't choose to spend time with somebody like me if I had a choice, but now I'm with guys like me all the time. Contact with people outside, well, they can call out for a fee. They can't call in. All kinds of limitations there, and it's getting worse in some places. How much contact I can have, and the restrictions put on it are getting crazy. A lot of jails now, it's purely video contact, and some of them make it very hard to have video contact on site. You can do it from the convenience of your own home for a lot of money, and that's the way it's going in a lot of places. So limited contact with the people you care about. Now here's where we come in. We're a little taste of normal in this abnormal world, this odd world of prison. People that come in to visit, family and friends, instructors, the chaplains, and us, the volunteers. A little bit of normal, a little bit of the outside world, and they love that so much. So many people are nervous about going into corrections. What are they going to do? What if they act up? What if they try something? For the vast, overwhelming majority of the people we encounter in corrections facilities, they are so glad to have this privilege of having contact with us. They don't want to lose that. Last thing they want to do, they're going to avoid bad behavior themselves. They're going to come down to anybody who's acting up, and so they don't want to lose this contact. Throw out these couple of statements here and see your thoughts on these. Some inmates will come to Bible study groups just because they're bored. And I can love inmates and at the same time distrust them. And when they're taking advantage of you, or you feel like maybe they are, when you're feeling uneasy about seem like they're pushing some limits with me. Always recommend, don't ignore that. Don't override that. Oh, I'll just be loving. Trust your gut. The Spirit is probably working through that gut of yours. If you feel uneasy, take that seriously. You don't have to explain yourself. Just say no actually does work. It can be a broken heart. I don't have to tell you why. I'm just saying no, I don't want that. Or if you do need a why, fall back in the institutional rules. I'm not allowed to do this or that. The rules say, and I want to keep on coming in here, so I'm going to keep these rules. I love being with you people, so I don't want to lose that privilege. So I'm going to enforce those rules today. And that's worked pretty well for me. Here's where it can get some uncomfortable, some uneasy, some challenging areas. Let's just say that. I feel such commonality with the people I'm ministering to. And that's good, and that's part of what we're there for, to rejoice with those who rejoice, to mourn with those who mourn. The better institutions, the one where they understand why we're coming in and the value of us coming in, they'll say, I'm glad you're here because we have people with issues like grief, with issues like guilt, with fear, and I'm so glad you're here to deal with those things. The better institutions recognize that, so we're going in for that reason. Then comes, well, how far do I go with this commonality? I remember having we had a meeting with some Department of Corrections officials a while back, and they were, on the one hand, telling us, well, we're glad you're here to help out with things like grief when somebody has a death in the family. And then they were telling us, you can't reveal any personal information at all about yourself. Don't say anything about your family, your situation in life. And I remember I said, now I've got a problem. If I'm coming in, I'm dealing with a guy whose father just died. And I've got the grief, I know what it's like to go through that grief from my own father dying. If I'm going to help him deal with this, I got to bring my situation in there. And that was interesting. One official said, no, don't say anything about yourself. And the others were saying, yeah, you got a point there. Frankly, how are you going to minister to somebody if it's not you ministering? Be discerning about it. Don't reveal information they could start to connect too many dots and say, ooh, I think I just figured out where this person lives. Right. That's the kind of thing you got to watch. In fact, Joe, you had that, weren't you telling me that story about the flowers at the funeral?
Yes.
Yeah, how did that go?
I think it was somebody at one of the institutions, and they heard that somebody's mother had died, and the next thing you know, here's these flowers that show up, at the person's house. And so how did they find out, about all of this? And it just, some of the connections, what you don't understand, as they're sharing information back and forth, and what people are doing with that information, and then putting those things together, and that permits them to be crossing some boundaries where you don't want them, you don't want them going, and so you have to. It's really hard, and I found myself struggling with this a lot more in the last few years, trying to always keep that in the back of my mind, that I need to always be on guard when it comes to any of those specifics, to be as general as possible when talking about things. Mm-hmm. And it becomes difficult when you want to draw upon your own experiences to relate to someone. But you need to be careful about those specifics.
Okay, yeah. That's in Philippians 1:9, something that I think gets overlooked a lot. My beautiful bride always points to this one. This is my prayer, that your love may abound more and more in knowledge and depth of insight, discerning insight. It's not just, love isn't just sentimental feeling. There's brain involved too. You just put some thought into that love. What do I say? What do I not say? What's helpful? What's not helpful? Be insightful and discerning. Watching yourself is really important here. The man who was the former volunteer coordinator at the prison I go to, Racine Correctional, he was real big in this. Come with your tank full. That was his phrase. Do not show up with an empty tank. Don't show up needy, because they'll sense that. It doesn't put you in a good position. Emotionally, spiritually, relationally, he would say sexually too. Don't come needy, because that could be exploited even if they don't want to. Their sensors are there. This one woman told me one time, I was visiting her, interesting person. I'd always wondered, what is her deal? She's always coming up with these scams and these hustles, and she doesn't have anything to show for it, and I don't think she's getting money. I don't think the money's going into her arm or up her nose. I don't know what's going on. And I got to talk to her one time when she was in Techita, been there for a while, and she was there long enough that she was able to get her thinking a little bit straight and get a little honest. And she said, the hustle, that's my high. I get a rush out of the hustle. I will try to scam something for the money, and once I got the money, the task is done, the thrill is gone. I got to move on to the next hustle. She said, I sit in the visiting room, and I'm overhearing conversations, and I'm thinking, I know how I could hustle that situation. Ooh, I know how I could scam that. The woman is just so tuned toward that. So just be aware, there's people that even if they don't want to, that's where their radar goes. So, come check yourself. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. Come emotionally, spiritually, relationally, sexually, whatever. Just come with your tank full. Don't come needy. Don't be. It's not fair to them because they're not the ones to fill your needs. I mean, granted, I get so much benefit from these guys. I just so love being with them. That is a wonderful aspect of this. But you don't want to come saying, I desperately need you guys. That's not fair to them. Don't put them in that position.